lesson in this series about A Streetcar Named Desire. Last lesson, we looked at our tragic hero Blanche, and we unpacked a little bit more about her character. Today, we're going to be looking at Stanislavski, who is a drama practitioner, and how his ideas influenced Tennessee Williams and A Streetcar Named Desire. To begin with, we're going to think about the film version, which was directed by Elia Kazan. In his director's notebooks, Kazan tried to work out what the spine of each character was. What was it that was driving their action and motivating them throughout the play? What was behind each and every one of their actions? So your job, to begin with, is to write a sentence for Stella, Blanche, and Stanley. What do you think is driving their action throughout the play and causing them to act? What do they want the most? What do you think their main objective is throughout this play? Pause this video now and have a go at that. Now, Kazan wrote in his notebooks that Stella's super objective, her spine, her core motivation was to hold on to Stanley, no matter what the cost. He said for Stanley, it was to preserve and protect his family situation against the invasion of Blanche. And for Blanche, he said that her motivation was to maintain the traditional ways and live by tradition. Have a look at your sentences or your phrases. How close were they to these? To what extent do you agree with Kazan? Do you disagree in any particular way with what he's written down? Now, we're having a look at Stanislavski, who is a drama practitioner. He's a Russian, and so he is working in the tradition of realism that was happening in Europe at the time. Now, he developed a method of naturalistic performance that was used alongside the realists in Europe. He suggested that acting needed to prioritize psychological realism, that actors should really think about what was going on in their characters' heads in order to present that on stage. He suggested that an actor should be experiencing the character, becoming the character, rather than just putting on a mask and going through the motions. One of his strategies for helping actors to do this was to think about objectives. What was it that their character wanted or was aiming to do at that moment in the play and overall? So he would split his scenes down into units of objectives. What does my character want to do at this particular moment as opposed to one later on? What was the objective here? He would also split it down into sentences, which he called beats. And the actor would have to think about what that character wanted there. So using objectives is a key skill in naturalistic acting. So why was Tennessee Williams so interested in this? Tennessee Williams, in his writing, very much looked to the playwrights of Europe who were writing in naturalistic forms. He was particularly inspired by the works of three playwrights that we need to be aware of, and they are Chekhov, Strindberg, and Ibsen. If you're interested, do have a Google of those names and see if you can find out any more about either some plays that they've written or a little bit more about their experience as dramatists. So realism was around in the late 19th century and early 20th century, and it attempted to hold a mirror up to real life and present reality on stage. The actors were to speak like the audience were, they were to dress like the audience, the sets were to feel as real as possible, even to the point where they might have a working shower on stage or a working light switch. But naturalism and realism operated on three primary principles. Number one, the action should be plausible. This means that it could happen in real life. Number 2, the actors needed to be like real people. Their motivations and actions should be as accurate to us psychologically as they possibly could be. And finally, the setting should be realistic. So Stanislavski's acting methods were created to try and aid principle number 2, to make the characters like real people. Now, one of the reasons that this is important for Streetcar is that these ideas arrived in America in the 1930s and was primarily taught at the Group Theatre, which was a company in the USA. Now, Marlon Brando was trained as part of the Group Theatre. He was trained by a lady called Stella Adler. She was a key practitioner of Stanislavski's method at the Group Theatre, and therefore he was trained in realistic, naturalistic acting. However, in the film version, Vivien Leigh and Jessica Tandy, who play Blanche and Stella, are both classically trained, which means that their acting is far more theatrical, far more a representation than Marlon Brando. So actually, if we watch the film, we can see this clash of classically trained actors and those who have been far more naturalistically trained using Stanislavski's method, a method actor. So it was really interesting, if you watch the film, to have a look at the menace, the mumbling inarticulacy of Marlon Brando playing Stanley versus the theatricality of Vivien Leigh playing Blanche. And we see this dichotomy very much played out between these two characters as well. So we're going to have a think about how we could use Stanislavski's system with scene 2. And we're going to see if we can break this scene down into its constituent units and work out what the objectives of our characters are. Now, if you are in class with me, you need to be prepared to share your section with the rest of the class. So there are some key questions as we're going through this. What are the characters' objectives at that point during the scene? Where do they change? Is there a subtext to what they're saying? Is there the verbal, what's going on in the words happening, and any underlying meaning, any conflict or power struggle? See if you can make a note of any tensions that you notice between the characters. And finally, it's really important to begin to think about who holds the power and the status at any given moment. If you're not in class and you're watching along online, I suggest that you either take a section of scene 2 or have a go at the whole thing and see if you can break down Stanley, Blanche and Stella's objectives at lots of different points during this scene. Pause this video and have a go at that now. Finally, we've got a very quick quiz, just recapping the stuff that we've had a look at today. So number 1, who is Stanislavski? Number 2, what are the 3 naturalistic playwrights from Europe that it would be useful to remember? And can you define the following terms? Pause this video and without going back, see how many of these you can answer. Fantastic. If you're with me in class, or you want to do a little bit of extra work, there are some videos here, 3 videos that will take you across scene 3 that will help you to prepare for next session. These should be listed in the description so that you can just click and play. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Thanks very much.